Welcome to Chat TPT, a podcast about music business from the unique perspective of content creators in the trumpet community. We are so excited to have you here with us today as we dive into the world of trumpet playing, content creation, and everything in between. We hope that you'll find a supportive and inclusive space with us where musicians from all backgrounds can learn, collaborate, and support one another.
Anyway, manifestation, law of attraction, what can we say about it? What's your experiences on it?
Well, I talked about it a bit last week about how, taking opportunities that I didn't necessarily think were where I wanted to go and sort of like changing my mindset about them so that, I feel good about it and I realize like, oh, this is getting me to where I need to be. Throughout my undergrad, rough time, chilling. I was a very negative person, and the way that I approach things, and I still do sometimes, and I'm trying to break that pattern, but was very tentative and very like I would go in expecting the worst.
Yeah.
And then I would be more successful than I expected. And I thought, okay, if I just think I'm garbage at things, I will do better than I thought going into it, and I'll be successful and the outcome will be better, which to an extent works, but it just really messes with your mind and it really messes with your performance in the long run. Like you can only do that for so long before you get demons in there and they start, you just start spiraling. So that's basically, it's so weird to say it out loud because like in my mind, like I was aware that I was doing that and I would like go out and be like, oh, okay, like I hope that, hope I don't like, choke or hope I don't like fail this thing.
Yeah.
When in reality, now that I have more experience and that I've done research on like psychology and all of that, it's way better for you to hype yourself up and first of all, you'll feel way more confident and comfortable going into a situation, and your performance, like the result of that is going to be so much higher than when you were thinking so negatively of yourself.
Yeah.
And that's just my personal experience. And it's something that's really hard to change, even to the point where like if throughout my daily life, like if I do something, like let's say I drop something on the floor or I knock over my coffee, my first instinct is to be like, oh, Kayla, you're so stupid. And that's not a healthy way of approaching it because like it's an accident, It's an accident. Accidents happen. That doesn't make me a stupid person. And so I've been trying to be like, oh, what a silly little mistake. How silly I am, and just trying to spin it because like, I'm irritated that happened, but like also trying not to make it like such a negative part of my life. Like, everyone's all the old saying, don't cry over spilt milk. I literally cry over every single drop of spilt milk growing up. Like the littlest thing happened, I would be a wreck. I would be a mess. I would not be able to function for days because I just let it get to me and I like just my thoughts just spin and spin and spin and spin and I can't get out of that spiral. So yeah, I've grown a lot. I accidentally the other day, this is not music related at all, but I was making pasta and pulled the package out of the cupboard and I didn't realize it was already open, all over the floor. All over the floor. And old Kayla would have just sat down and cried and been so frustrated. And I was just laughing. I was like, what the heck? This is so silly. And I picked up like most of it and I was like, it's fine. Like it's going into boiling water. It's going to be cleaned off, whatever, But like I've had so many situations in my life. Like I remember driving places and like I couldn't figure out where to go. Not to mention like I was undiagnosed with ADHD for 27 years.
Right.
26 years. And I was, I couldn't follow directions. I couldn't remember anything. So I would get frustrated really, really easily. And like, it's hard to watch everybody else around you catch on to things so quickly and remember things and be able to like process this information so quickly. And it's like, why am I not able to do that? I remember in high school, I was invited to someone's birthday party at a restaurant who I've never been there before, and I had like just gotten my driver's license, and so I was driving there. I ended up the north side of town, no idea where I was. I was on the phone with my mom crying. I'm like, I don't know where I am. And she's like, it's like, you go back here and like it'll be on. And I finally did find the restaurant, and I was like, I can't go in there, I'm going home. And it was like the most stressful and embarrassing part of my whole life. And I like made up some story about how like, oh, like I got busy and I couldn't come. But, you know, because I was literally like crying in my car in a parking lot because I couldn't figure out where to go. And, you know, sometimes I still feel like doing that. But now I know, I was like, okay, it's not the end of the world. I deal with things the way I deal with things. Crying is okay. Marcus might go out and like fight the entire world and, you know, battle all of his demons. Kayla's just going to sit in a corner and cry, and then she'll feel better. We'll move on. Yeah. You know, we all process, we all deal with things differently.
And that's the important part is how you process things, like allowing yourself to process things organically, and and then like, what are you going to do about it, and how are you going to go and allow it to be for your good and for your success, right? I think it's really interesting. A lot of people, we don't realize, or we underestimate the how much of our lives contribute to self-fulfilling prophecies, and how much it is that our thoughts determine our reality. Most of our circumstances are, you know, those two things are responsible for most of our circumstances, I guess is the best way to put it. And really, truly, if you see yourself as a person who is pathetic and of no self-worth and are destined for failure, then that's exactly what's going to happen to you. And it's really sad, right? Because then you have then proven yourself in your mind that you are destined for failure, and that you don't deserve anything, and that you're never going to succeed. And even when somebody comes along and says, no, you have incredible great worth, and you are destined to succeed, and you deserve all of the greatest things in the world, depending on how long you've been telling yourself that narrative, it can be really difficult to believe that. Because like, well, no, I had actual life experiences that have shown me, you know, and through your confirmation bias of those experiences, you might believe, oh, well, you know, they just don't understand me. I really am destined for failure. It's really sad. But if you're able to get out of your own head, which is one of those things, I mean, this is such a large part of our music culture, right? Like what you were saying earlier about, oh, I made one mistake, I suck, right? Or someone shows up and they want to play in a master class, and then a lot of times you'll hear a lot of students, even today, they'll show up in front of their colleagues and be like, okay, I'm going to play XYZ. I hope I don't suck, right? We just take that out of our vocabulary, right? And instead say, I've been working really hard on this. I'm excited to share it with you, right? Instantly, your demeanor is going to change. And in most cases, your performance is going to be better, just because you said you were excited and not that you were worried about being imperfect in front of imperfect people who all understand your craft better than any other group of people would, by the way. So it really doesn't matter if you mess up in front of them. That's a perfect place to mess up. But we get in that mindset, and that's kind of what I mean, it's the birth point of, you know, manifestation. A lot of people have their minds are, a lot of people are skeptical about it, right? Because oftentimes when people define law of attraction and that type of thing, they define it without much context and without the full definition, which is just like, if I believe something will happen, then it will happen. Obviously, there's a lot more to it than that, right? You can't just wake up one morning and say, I'm going to get $1 million. And if I just think about it hard enough, I'll be a millionaire. No, you wake up and you say, I deserve to be a millionaire. And the best version of myself when I've reached that goal is going to make these decisions and talk about these things and treat people in these ways. And what manifestation does for you is you say, okay, cool. I'm imagining, like we mentioned a little bit last week, I'm imagining the best version of myself. And this is this version of myself that has reached this desired future state where I've achieved all of my wildest dreams. Maybe it's $1 million. I use that as an example because a bunch of people like money, right? So it's a silly overused example, but if you just use it as an example, okay, cool, great. Now, what is it going to take for me to get there, and how will I feel most importantly when I'm there, when I've accomplished that goal? And maybe for you, I mean, for musicians, this would be the case. I think for a lot of us, if we were millionaires, we would take it and we would use it to serve other people who are musicians. You know, you'd go out and donate to a nonprofit organization, you know, El Sistema or Brass for Africa, or you would start your own, your own summer or spring camp or program for students, or you would teach private lessons, or whatever the case may be, whatever it is that you would do with that money in your dream. You know, maybe I'm sure plenty
Buy all the trumpets.
Yeah, buy all the. That's probably what would happen. Go to the International Trumpet Go conference, buy every mouthpiece, and then buy every trumpet. Just $1 million down the drain in one day. Probably is all it would take.
Like, how do I only have 5 trumpets out of this whole thing?
Yeah. I'm never going to use this trumpet, but I'm going to buy it anyway. As a side note, I only play on one mouthpiece right now in my career, and I only play on 2 trumpets in my career, and I'm perfectly happy. So it's possible to not go bankrupt from buying trumpets. But whatever the case may be, I mean, like, you're saying to yourself, okay, cool. The way that I'm going to feel as a millionaire musician, right? We'll just take that example and take it to the end. I will be happy because of XYZ, you know, and then what you do is you wake up in the morning and you visualize that happiness and that feeling, and the way that you would walk, the way that you would talk, the way that you would be around people, and the type of decisions that you would make, the standards you would hold yourself to, and you live that way this day, right? You're not a literal millionaire this day, but you know, you have your visualization board, right, that shows all the things that you want to achieve, but it's in present tense instead of future tense, right? And you're saying to yourself, okay, this is the person that I am, you know. And when you live that, you literally attract that into your life because you were acting in the way that you would have acted had that existed. But if you don't have any money and you're thinking at the mindset of someone who doesn't have any money, then you're going to make decisions of someone who doesn't have any money. And so you'll start to, you know, try to save pennies in areas where it doesn't really do you any good. Or you'll start to say, oh, well, you know, this thing really would help my career, but I can't afford it. And so you wouldn't, you know, you wouldn't try to make it work. You would just say, oh, no, I'm just not going to do it. And by not building your skills, it will continue to keep your skills undeveloped, which means you won't be worth $1 million, which means you'll be poor, right? That's one example. A more likely example for a lot of us as musicians is the whole, like, when you're a music major and you see your professors, and your professors are at this, you know, seems like this God level, right? That you'll never, ever achieve. You take lessons with, you know, somebody like Terry Eberson, right? Or somebody like Alan Vizzuti, or somebody like Phil Smith, or whatever, right? Whoever it is that you're studying with, or somebody like Tom Hooten. And you think to yourself, wow, they're just so incredible, and you can't see that path. Well, what if you don't need to see the path, right? What if you're just thinking about, oh, I want to be like him someday, or I want to be like her someday, or whatever. Just think to yourself, okay, how would I feel when I reach that? How would I feel if I was the next Amy McCabe, or Tina Ting Helseth, or Mary Bowden, or whoever is on your mind, or the next Wynton Marsalis? Like, when I achieve those goals, how will I feel? What standards will I hold myself as principal trumpet of the New York Philharmonic, right? How would I approach myself in the practice room? How would I treat my students? What type of gigs would I play for my community? You know, if a part of your future is being married and or having children, how would you raise your family? You know, what are the type of traveling gigs you would take? And just visualize how you would feel and the decisions you would make, and then make those decisions as if you're already there. So you show up in the practice room and you go, okay, cool. This is my desired journey in the practice room. I need to focus on perfecting this skill for my professional symphony orchestra performance that happens in a couple of months. And maybe you're just a music major and you're in a college symphony orchestra, right? But you can treat that as though you were already a professional musician, right? And then when you show up, you know, hopefully as a professional musician, you're going to treat your colleagues with respect, right? What type of respect? And how are you going to admire those musicians? And then show up to your college, symphony orchestra or wind band or whatever it is, and show that same respect and admiration for those musicians who are around you today. And when you do those things, you're preparing yourself to live in that reality. And that reality, for more or less, your body accepts the fact that it exists. And as a result, you are already there. Even though you're not physically there, you're mentally and emotionally there. And it makes it a lot easier for you to achieve that goal. It just shows up in your life because you have prepared in every way that you possibly can to live that goal. So anyway, that's the way of living that helps you to kind of achieve your goals. And I'm going to be honest, as a content creator, I have employed that a lot, and it's helped me to stop a lot of the toxicity that comes to mind whenever somebody leaves a hate comment, or you watch someone post a few videos and they go viral and you're like, but I thought I did exactly the same thing. Why is there so much more successful? Or whatever the case, when you see someone get a job, or at this age in the stage in life, right, going into your go in like, between mid-20s and mid-30s, right, the stage where all of your friends, it seems like, it's not all of them, but it seems like all of them, thanks to social media, all of your friends get married and all of your friends have children and all of your friends get, doctoral degrees, and all of your friends get their dream job, and all of that stuff, right? And because you're not experiencing that yourself every single day, but you look on social media and you see it for someone every single day, then you feel like you're behind, even if you've gotten some amazing opportunities yourself, right? Which can be a really difficult thing. But if you're thinking to yourself, no, I've already achieved my goals, right? Because my goal is a state of mind, and this is my state of mind. I'm going to operate in that state of mind until the rest of the world around me, my environment and my circumstances catch up to what I've already accepted to be mine. Then you're going to be able to get away from that toxic mindset and that attitude, and you're not going to be as discouraged through the process, because you're going to be able to view that success in a way that you can control. So anyway, hopefully that's a active and effective way of kind of explaining how to get yourself in that mindset. But that's really what it is, right? And when you go to music school, and we talk about the sometimes blatant toxicity of music schools, way of undervaluing musicians, if you have then decided to take it upon yourself to wake up every morning and to envision the best version of yourself and having achieved your dreams, you're restoring that value and reinstilling that value into your life, while then allowing you to activate yourself to then do whatever it takes in order to get where you need to go. Those things that, the music schools do what they do so that we can reach that desired state. That's why it's there. Right. So if you're able to put yourself in the healthy mindset version of you giving your best every single day, then it gives some really great results.
And I think like everything you're saying is like so true and so fabulous, but some people like they have like it's so hard. Like even as you were talking, I'm like, oh yeah, this makes sense. And I'm like, but there are times in my life where I don't think I can make those changes. And that's where so many people struggle.
Yeah.
Because like there are some days when you wake up and you're like, mental health, stress, burnout, everything. Like and we talked about this before, like you're not always going to be able to give 100%. And so setting realistic goals for yourself, like even like I'm going to get out of bed this morning. Like just taking that first step, because often taking that first step is the hardest thing. So figure out like what your end goal is, whatever it is, and be like, okay, work your way backwards. Okay, this person would do this, and then before that they would do this, and then like make that list in your mind, so that it also like helps you to sort of realize that all of these people that we look up to, they're humans too. They wake up in the morning, they get out of bed, they brush their teeth, make breakfast sometimes, I don't know.
Yeah.
Shower regularly, like take care of themselves. Like that's the most important thing, because if you're not in a good mindset, like for like self-care, taking care of your mental health, taking care of your physical health, you're not going to be able to achieve those big goals, because it's just going to feel so far away. So starting off by like, it sounds so silly. It sounds so silly. Eat 3 meals a day. Like, if you're not eating, you don't have energy. If you know you want to eat healthier, but like you're barely eating at all, just be like, as long as you eat something, that's a good thing. That's a win. So like taking all of those huge goals and like breaking them down into like smaller, manageable, bite-sized chunks
Mhm.
because life is overwhelming.
Yes. And that's the most important part of it, right? It's when we say like how would we walk, how would we talk, how would we be, right? How would you get out of bed? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? Oh, because I'm at my desired future state. Because I am whatever it is. Let's say you want to be a college professor at a conservatory, right? So you're getting up in the morning because you know that that is the place that makes you happy, and so it's worth doing it. And so it helps provide as a motivation. Then you're asking yourself, what does let's use Frost School of Music for example. I don't know, just throw a random awesome great college out there, right? If I am a trumpet professor at Frost, literally waking up in the morning, what type of breakfast would I eat if I'm in the good mood of an individual that gets to show up and teach my ideal students every single day and to see their fiery passion and to go out and achieve their wonderful goals? And what state of mind would I be in, and how would I treat, what type of meal would I treat myself? What is the meal of champions for me this morning? What is the meal of champions for me this evening? How am I going to go about the process of doing these things? And it becomes, especially that for a lot of people, this becomes a fun prospect, right? Like, okay, great. Like you're imagining yourself maybe in a role playing video game might be a good way to describe it, right? And you're like, okay, cool. I am, the king of this civilization or the queen of this civilization. I am the ruler. I have accomplished all that I want to accomplish, and everyone will throng to admire me and whatever it is, whatever you're visualizing. And then, like, okay, awesome. I'm going to be a faithful ruler and I'm going to serve those who are around me. How am I going to serve them today? Right? At least it's healthy if you do it that way. Hopefully, you're not a tyrannic ruler. Otherwise, it doesn't really work quite as well. But those are the things you're thinking rather than saying like, man, my teacher can do these things and I can't do any of them yet. So that means that they have more value than I do. That's not even a part of the conversation at all. That's not even a thought that goes into your mind when you're thinking about this, right? Because what's going into your mind is, oh yeah, I'm going to be like them someday, or I'm going to do the things that they never could do, which in a lot of ways is possible because the world changes every single day, and the things that are priority at one stage in life are not priority in previously or in the future or whatever the case may be, right? And so in your mind, you're thinking, all right, I'm going to accomplish XYZ goals that my professor never accomplished. You probably will be right because of the circumstances that are changing and the environment that changes around you. And if you're in that mindset, then there's nothing to stop you from achieving your goals. Otherwise, your mind will stop you from achieving your goals every single day. There's a little bit of a, it's very easy and common to think about this when you're in college, when you see people around you, and especially when you look at your professors and you look at where you are at that particular stage in life, and you haven't yet achieved that desired state that we keep talking about, that area of where you want to be, and you try to perceive the gap between you and someone else. Yeah, we talk about the toxic part of comparison. Like, well, if there are people like Joey Tartel out there, how am I ever going to reach that level? That's where we get a lot of the, like, people show up to the national trumpet competition and they watch somebody perform, right? They watch somebody like Grace perform. Shout outs to Grace, or Christina, or any number of people who have made their way into finals over the past few years. And instead of being inspired by it, they go, "Oh, I quit. I'll never get there." Why? Why would you do that? But it's because of that comparison, right? You look and you go, "Oh man, I think I will never get there. So I might as well stop trying." Well, no, because you guys you all came from the same place, right? You came from whatever your beginning was, and it's a journey to get there.
The other thing that I've found, and I am definitely guilty of it, especially when I was in my toxic era, um, but
Did you do a hair flip? The toxic era,
toxic
the
era,
the, the toxic diva era.
because so a lot of the time the way we treat other people reflects how we feel on the inside. So when you see somebody performing, and this actually happened at NTC this past year, and I was ready to throw hands, but there was a group of people behind where I was sitting, like literally the row right behind me. Someone was playing in the finals, and they were just talking smack. They're like, "Oh, this person isn't good. This person, oh, they did this, oh, they did that." And, like, while they're playing, and I just want to turn around and be like, "You're not up there." And also, it just proves that these are all of the things that you're insecure about, and like you're just like pushing all of your insecurities out there, and you're trying to bring everybody down when what we should be doing is bringing everybody up. And
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing. And like, it's hard to be in an environment where everyone does that because you feel like that's the norm. And it's like, not only are you being self-deprecating, you're also like bringing everybody else down. So it's just not a healthy environment to be in. Um, Going back to just like the, manifestation and all of that, I made a fun little discovery earlier this year when I was like recording for auditions. I don't do orchestra excerpts and stuff, but I was like, I'm gonna, record these auditions. Didn't make it into any of the things, which I was like, that's fine. Like, it's not my thing. But I did it. And even the small things as like showing up and being like, okay, I'm gonna be an actor. This is my role. My role is going to be an orchestral trumpet player doing a recorded audition. And this is what I'm going to do. So even if like, I like to treat things sort of like as a game. So even if I'm not like, you know, able to see myself as that, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be an actor. This is what I'm going to do. And eventually, like, you notice that, oh, I'm approaching it this way. This is actually way easier than the way I was doing it before. Um, but yeah, so that sort of just like reminded me of when I was recording those excerpts, because like I was not comfortable with them, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go out and do this and do the best that I can.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are just some of my thoughts. Blah, squirrel brain.
No, not squirrel brain. Amazing genius brain that has rapid fire, high inspiration, high passion.
Yes.
Yes, which is a great, wonderful thing because you're a great, wonderful person.
And so are you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm okay with that as long as you acknowledge that you are.
I'm great.
That's the other thing as a side note as well. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we are really good friends for each other, is because as we talked about in the beginning, when you sometimes get into that mindset that is less of that, seeing yourself with value and that type of thing, you have other people around you who are doing, your accountability partners, as I listed in my trumpet studio, which that might be a side note worth talking about, but those people in your life who are able to say, hey, stop, no, Kayla, you're not an idiot because you dropped your meal on the floor. Like, it's perfectly fine. You're still Kayla. You're still the great and amazing person you are. Now, stop this blasphemy of you telling yourself that you suck, because you don't. And then the same thing, like you did it to me on podcast. I forget even what it was. I just remember saying something and I was like, oh yeah, I'm an idiot. And then you're like, no, you're not. I'm like, yep, that's right. Thank you for reminding me, because it's such an ingrained part, over the years of my childhood. And sometimes it rears its ugly head. And yeah, you're like, nope, whack-a-mole on that ugly head. Get out of here. We need your best self here. We love our best selves. We're going to help each other be the best we possibly can. It's a really good thing. And to surround yourself in an environment where it is conducive for your success. It is in many ways as important or more important than the actual work ethic that you put toward achieving these goals. And that's not just talking about, how you will feel and the things that you'll achieve, but just, your overall happiness and mental health and well-being. Putting yourself around people who perpetuate the thoughts and beliefs that you have to climb a ladder that never allows you to progress to that, magical state of perfection, and that you're never, ever, ever going to get there. if you're in that environment, it's going to be really hard to get out of that mindset, because that's what's around you and what's informing your thoughts and decisions and actions. But when you put yourself around a community that lifts you up and that gives you value and that gives themselves value, and doesn't allow their insecurities, like you were saying, to try to bring other people down and try to diminish their successes, but instead lifts them up and encourages them and inspires them, then that's going to be the situation that allows you to be in an environment where you can achieve these goals of visualizing your desired future state, and operating in the best version of yourself that you possibly can as you continue to go there. I mentioned a side note about accountability partners. My students, my private lesson students, I'm in the process of, first of all, I have recently revamped the way that I run my studio, that's maybe something to talk about in the future as things develop more. It's a very recent development, but I offer a lot of assets to my students that I used to not have the luxury to be able to offer, because of the way I've pared down the way that I teach. I used to teach people of all ages, in all experience levels, and I still do, but for 99% of my students, I've geared myself down to one specific age group of individuals with specific sets of goals. That way I can perfect myself and specialize in helping them achieve that specific goal, rather than spreading myself too thin. I have colleagues who have other dreams and other ideal students and whatnot, and they can focus on that and they can become the best in the world at that, etc. Right? And as a result, everyone ends up improving, rather than everyone trying to do everything. Right? So I do that, and part of the things that I do as a teacher is I have developed an interactive practice record log for them, which I think I showed you in its beginning stages, and how it works, and basically just allowing them to show their practice at a glance and allow them to see how the work ethic they put towards what they do reflects the way that they play and the way that they perform in other instances. So if they're having trouble with high range and they notice that that they had a lesson on Thursday and they didn't practice on Friday through Monday, so they solved it by cramming on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then their range is suffering on Thursday, they can now see it as a glance. When I do this happens. But part of what I have on that lesson is I have their name, and then beside their name, I have what's called an accountability partner, and that is that we're able to determine at some point in the studio, and it's of course optional, but I think it's really helpful for most people to determine someone else who is most likely in my studio, but at least someone else who has similar goals as them, whether they're in my studio or not. And you list that person as your accountability partner, and that person you talk to about the direction that you're going with your career, or the direction that you're going with your passion. If you're auditioning for example, all district band, and you're a high school student, and your best friend, who is your accountability partner, is also auditioning for all district band, then you get to play your prepared pieces for each other. You get to get used to what it's like to play a chromatic scale in front of somebody and get used to playing with that pressure. You get together in your own practice sessions and play duets. If they're in my studio, maybe you get together in my lessons and you do duets, and in my master classes, etc. And you have that opportunity to kind of just hold each other accountable to being the best versions of yourselves that you can be, which sometimes means being a good trumpet player or a trombone player or horn player or whatever instrument you play. But a lot of times it just means, hey, now you said that you're a failure and you're wrong. Get that out of here. You're my friend, and I don't allow any of my friends to be treated poorly by anyone, and that includes you. Right? And there's parts of that and aspects of that are just so very, very helpful for you achieving your goal, that aren't necessarily possible, or at least are significantly harder when you're doing it by yourself. So anyway, my studio is built upon building those environments to help you to achieve those goals, because that's how importantly I personally feel about that law of attraction manifestation and implementing your desired future self. And I'm willing to build an entire community around my students to help them to achieve it. So this isn't just something that Kayla and I are just talking about because it's a nice idea. It's something that we live by.
Yeah. I think like the idea of an accountability buddy, like that's so important for me, especially because like I don't do well doing tasks by myself. I need something to hold me accountable. Like if I realized this in my last year of my doctorate, because I had so much time to write and I didn't have any scheduled time to write. So I'm like, well, I'm not gonna do it because I'm gonna take a nap instead because I have the time to take a nap. So I'm gonna take a nap. But like
Yeah.
having that person to keep you accountable, and like a huge shout out to my roommate at the time, like also my best friend. I love him, Jacoby Henry. Shout out. Um, he is such an inspiration. Like he started teaching at a college, which also I was just like, I saw him doing that and I'm like, oh my God, like why am I not teaching at a college? He did his master's in classical trumpet. He's doing his DMA in jazz trumpet. He's like all around an amazing player. He's a composer. He improvises.
Yeah.
He arranges, does all of these things and teaches. And we would get together and we would just sight read duets. We would do that and we'd work on that. Like I told him what my goals were. I was like, I need somebody to hold me accountable. I need to practice my sight reading because I'm not confident in it. And when I'm not confident at something, my skill level actually gets lower. So
Yeah.
my actual sight reading skill level is like here. I want it to be up here, but when I'm not confident, it's down here. So and we did that. And we did that during COVID too, before we even met in person. We were in the same studio and we're like, hey, let's do weekly trumpet time. We called them
Yeah.
trumpet play dates. And we would just do warm-ups. He would lead me through some exercises that he was working on. I would lead him through some exercises that I was working on. And we go back and forth and we talk about our ideas. We talk about like suggestions we had for each other. And it wasn't like us competing against each other. It was us like lifting each other up and trying to help each other be the best trumpet players that we could be. And I did that with a bunch of other people too. I did that with Ellen Schnagel over COVID too. Like we just like hopped on a Zoom meeting because I was by myself at home in the basement doing absolutely nothing. I didn't want to practice. like
Yeah.
you know so you get that person and then like you can chat, you can hang out, do all of those things, and then on top of that you're playing trumpet every once in a while, and it's just a great way to sort of keep your spirits up but also keep your chops up.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's in my opinion, that's one of the best parts about studios, because I mean, you can get what you get from your teacher. And oftentimes that's why, at least I advise a lot of my students who look to be music majors. That's what the most important thing I tell them is make sure that you are a great fit with your teacher. If not, it doesn't matter where you're going. If you go to the greatest school in the world and you're not compatible with your teacher, it's not going to do any good. Don't do it. So it's super, super important. But then equally as important is the environment that you're going to feel like when you're in your studio. So yeah, when you're looking for colleges, go out and also check out who is in that studio and the way that they treat themselves. But if you're in a studio where you're able to sort of have those, either unofficial or deliberate, friends who get together and again, like lift each other up, encourage each other. Okay, these are my goals. These are my goals too. Let's work on them together. Or that person that happens to practice at the same time every day or every week that you do, right? Like, don't be afraid to make friends with that person and work together towards achieving your separate and collective goals. That's one of the biggest. That was one of the biggest things that helped me, especially in my undergrad, to continue to improve. I would rehearse, or not rehearse, I would practice every Saturday morning at 7 a.m. and most of my colleagues would be asleep. But there was one member in the trumpet studio who was always awake and I was always on the same floor practicing. And so it ended up being one of those things where I just I looked forward to oh, I hear her practicing again. Like, cool, she's working on XYZ. Oh, I'm excited to hear that at our recital. I bet she's going to sound great, type of thing. And then it was like, that's cool. That inspires me to want to work on what I'm working on. And then every now and then, one of us would knock on the other person's door and ask a question or talk about something or just be like, hey, can I, if you're in a rut in the morning, like one time she knocked on my door, I was just like, Marcus, playing trumpet's so hard, it's like, I
Yes.
get it, tell me about it. Like I'm missing a crap ton of notes, everything is out of tune, it's so difficult and it's so frustrating. Like, how am I supposed to get right? And we might sit and commiserate for a while and then like, okay, great, it's out of our chest. And then like I said before, okay, then what are you going to do about it? All right, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that. Okay, cool, thanks for the talk, great talk. And then go back and then finish the session. Right. And without having that ability to kind of be together and to work together in that regard. Maybe you just be discouraged your entire practice session and be in your head the entire time, which I've also had plenty of instances where that was the case, right? But it becomes easier when you're with individuals who have that compassion and who understand, and you're working together, because then it's, you get to celebrate your successes with each other, and as a result, you're both better. So yeah, it's a really great part of your growth as musicians. If there's anyone listening to us who doesn't do that, your teacher will be great, hopefully, right? But even greater is going to be how you interact with your colleagues and each other. And then also, again, it informs how you're going to work with your colleagues as a professional as well. That desired future state that you're in. How many times can we say desired future state in this podcast? I don't think we said it enough. Because it's important to visualize your best self and then be your best self, regardless of what you physically have in front of you today, to make that decision to be the best version of yourself, to be the kindest person, to be the most compassionate person, to be that person that you love and that you want to be. Those are things you can control today, and these are things to help you control it.
Yeah, I love that. And like, if you don't have a trumpet friend, make friends with a horn player, make friends
Absolutely.
with a trombone player, a violinist, an oboist. Like, you can play duets with like trumpet and clarinet, same key, play duets with them.
Absolutely.
And then they bring a different sort of like approach. They come from like a different area, so they're not going to understand exactly how trumpet works, but they understand how music works. They can be like, oh, well, have you thought about it like this? And you can go back and forth. I think that the most important thing is to like not be condescending when you're talking with someone else. Ask if they want help or if they want your opinion, because I get a lot of really great I get a lot of fun advice when I didn't ask for it. And I mean, I'm sure it's great advice, but like, I have a process that I'm working through, and I'm working through this process in my way, and sometimes other people's processes aren't going to work for me, and I know that, and I respect that, and they're free to do it, but I'm working through it in my way. Like, if I ask you to, I've gotten to the point where like, if I ask someone to listen to me play, especially for NTC as I'm getting prepared, like, I know what I'm going for. I want to practice being nervous. So I want you to sit in the room. I do not need comments. I do not need you to give me suggestions on how to play more musically, how to do anything. I just need you to sit there and stare at me and make me feel nervous, because your presence itself is going to make me shake. And that's what I'm practicing in that moment. So I think it's really important to also just be forward with people about like when you want help, when you want advice, versus like, because they don't know. Like, if you don't tell them that you just want them there to sit and listen and not give you any comments, in music, everybody's always giving you comments. You're going to get multiple different comments from different people.
Yeah.
And they're always going to be contrasting, because nobody thinks the same way. Music is very open to interpretation. So if you're not, very specific with people who are listening to you play, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed right now. I've had 3 different people tell me to play this one passage 3 different ways, and now I don't know what to do. But
yeah, that's so important, right? To let the world know what you want. First of all, that last thing you said is super relatable. It's really difficult. It's really easy to get analysis paralysis. Well, we'll say it that way. When you say, like, for example, if you're in a master class and then we go the whole, like, give everyone a voice, everyone around the room, which is great and all, but like when you hear 21 people say separate things about what they see about what you're doing, well, which one do you take? What are you going to focus on?
Right.
What goal is going to be achievable that you're going to set forward? And especially as musicians who are often notorious for not bringing pencils with them to take notes, you're just not going to remember anything, right? You're just going to be like, oh yeah, everyone had feedback for me, which means that I was bad. I did it bad. I'm going to go to the practice room and try to be not bad. And that's hardly productive.
Not productive at all.
Yeah, telling the world what you want is extremely helpful. Sometimes you want advice. Do not ask for advice when you're just looking for someone to validate you, to tell you, oh yeah, that's okay, you are doing a good job, your practice is helping. If that's what you want to hear, then ask for it, and ask for it genuinely, of course, right? Like, don't ask people to tell you that you're doing great if they know you're not doing great, But if you're not looking for that type of feedback for advice, then yeah, tell them, I'm looking to see, do you feel like I'm in a good mental space? Do you feel like I'm in a good position, etc.? And then they'll tell you yes or no, right? Or if you're saying, I really need you to critique me, give me your wisdom based off of the experiences that you've been through, they will give you your wisdom, their wisdom, depending on the experiences they've been through and how they've seen you progress. But you have to tell them, sometimes, like you were saying, sometimes the best thing you could possibly do is to put yourself in a situation where you're just performing in front of people. And if that's your goal, tell them that. Hey, please come to this practice room at this time. I'm just trying to get my experience as I prepare to audition for the International Trumpet Guild's competition. And these are the things that I'm going through. And I play so differently, like most of us do, when you're in front of people and you're under pressure, right? So I just need you guys to come here and add pressure as I do this, and you might find out as you go through that process, you also do want advice. Okay, great, then ask for it. But just make sure that people know exactly what you're asking for. Our friends and colleagues will give it, so that's super important to do. My former teacher literally goes through the process of scheduling and putting together recitals for the sole purpose of preparing him for certain goals. If he's going to a competition or if he's performing somewhere else or whatever, he's going to say, all right, cool, I'm going to host a recital at this church or at this area, or I'm going to host a faculty recital at my school, or whatever the case may be. I'm going to learn this repertoire to prepare for this. And that seems like to someone who has been trained to do that, that seems really obvious, right? But it's not intuitive to everyone. And so if you're preparing, like, do that, that's going to help you. That's going to be really helpful for you to go through the process of again, achieving your best self, right? To put yourself in those positions. And then you create and facilitate, once again, an environment where people understand how to help you to achieve your greatest goals. And as a result, it's going to forge a symbiotic relationship where you're helping them as well.
Yeah, this whole topic reminds me. So I posted on my story yesterday. It was just like a little tweet. I don't know if you saw it, but it was like a 6-year-old was working on a bead design and asked their sister or brother or whatever, do you want to help me? And then the 8-year-old was like, yes, do you want me to follow your directions or give ideas? And that's the kind of communication 6 and 8-year-olds, like, that's the kind of communication we need as grown-ups.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
absolutely.
And it would just, that's what we need, because we're not mind readers. And just asking like someone what they need is also like a way of helping them to feel better about giving you direction too. Like, okay, so what do you want? Like, if I want to complain, I'm going to text a friend and be like, I need to complain. You do not need to help me find a solution. I just need to vent, or be like, oh, I have a problem. Can you help me find a solution or help me walk through the process? So that kind of communication is like important in all aspects of life, not just music.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't forget to stay up to date with us on social media. You can find us on YouTube at Chat TPT and individually on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Threads at TPT Solo and at MS Grant Music. We love hearing from you and staying connected with our amazing music community. If you enjoyed today's episode and found it valuable, please consider sharing it with your fellow trumpet players and music enthusiasts. Your support helps us grow and reach even more people. Please leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. It would mean the world to us. Your reviews help others discover our show, and we're always eager to hear your feedback. Thanks for tuning in and being part of the Chat TPT family. We'll be back soon with more inspiring conversations and valuable insights. Until next time, keep playing those beautiful notes and stay connected.